Greetings, everybody. Today, I wanted to kind of showcase a little project that I've been working on. So, this project basically came about because I was thinking about, a couple pain points for performance test engineers. And I think two of the main pain points for performance testers is one, is creating a JMeter script from scratch. And I think two is taking test results and performing an analysis of those results and then generating a report. So, as part of this framework I'm building out, it's actually an AI agent framework that utilizes it uses Python, and then it also utilizes some underlying technologies, specifically LangChain, LangGraph, Llama Index, and eventually it's going to use AutoGen for the reporting aspect of everything. So currently, right now, I'm just working on the first part of the framework, which is the generating the JMeter script from scratch. And essentially, how this framework will work is you will basically pass in a text file that contains some human readable browser navigation tasks and steps to navigate through the UI and perform different features and functionalities within the UI. And then essentially, what will happen is that framework will then take that information and then pass it to an LLM and then break it apart into uh, browser navigation steps. And then after it separates and breaks everything into steps, that is then passed on to another tool, which is actually this browser use tool that I was able to work with. And this browser use tool is actually kind of cool. What this does is you can basically automate what you do within a browser by basically taking that human readable text, and then it basically uses an LLM in the back end to basically navigate through the browser based upon the information or the navigation steps that you actually provided. So basically, essentially, under the hood for this browser use is actually Playwright. So it's able to capture like all the DOM elements and all the different backend HTML components that make up the web page. So it's very easy to use, and it can actually extract a lot of information, and it can navigate through the UI to perform any kind of automation task. So essentially, my framework does the same thing. It utilizes that same browser use library, but in addition to that, since it's using Playwright underneath the hood, it will then go ahead and capture all that backend traffic, and then it takes that backend traffic and it saves it as a JSON file, kind of similar to like a HAR file, right? But the only key difference here is that when I save the information as a JSON file, I'm also injecting metadata into that JSON structure that will provide more information. So when we get to the part where we're going to actually generate the JMeter script, it can take that information, that metadata information, and it can properly create a JMeter script based upon the additional metadata, along with all the different HTTP requests for like GET requests, post requests, and a post body, and etc. etc. And then after it creates the actual JMeter script, what it will do too is then it can take that JMeter script, does a validation, make sure it's properly structured, and then it can kick off a little smoke test. So right now, I got, for the most part, like most of the stuff working. I still need to implement the smoke test part, but that's pretty simple. I'm not really worried about that. So this is kind of a work in progress right now. I do have everything within GitHub right now, so it's just under JMeter AI agent. Currently, this is a private repo, so if you're looking to try to download it, it's not available yet. So I'm trying to still work out a couple tweaks here and there, but once I get things a little bit more along and working to my satisfaction, I'll go ahead and share it, and it will be open source. So if anybody wants to use it, they're free to use it as however they see fit. It will come with a BSD license though, so the main thing with the BSD license is you have to basically acknowledge that this was built by me, and that if you use it for whatever purposes, you also have to maintain that this is copyrighted under my name. So, but anyways, so let me kind of give a little demo of how this works, so you can kind of see it in action. So I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, personally, something that I've just been working on for the past few weeks, and when I have a little bit of time here and there, I spend a little time working on this. So we have like the first thing that we have is we have like a little main entry point into the actual framework itself. So basically, this will just go ahead and kick off the framework. So what this is actually I don't have it included in here, but what this script will do, and I can actually show you real quick. It will basically just go in and it will basically invoke Streamlit. So basically, Streamlit is the UI interface for this framework, because I wanted to make the framework a little easy to use for end users, so they don't have to do things from the command line. Because I know working from the command line sometimes is not the best approach when you're trying to work on stuff. So let me go ahead and kick this off, and you can kind of see it in action. So this basically this will go ahead and kick off the browser use framework, and it will basically just open up a browser, and it will go to your local host on this particular port. Uh, and once you load it up, this is basically the UI. So for this, don't mind like all these borders. Since this is using Streamlit under the hood for the UI component for this application, I put borders on here because I was trying to get everything put into a nice looking format and make sure everything kind of looks pretty. So don't mind if you see the borders there; those will eventually be taken out. But what we have here, this is the main UI, and there's different parts of the UI here. So if you want to stop the actual framework from running, you can just come over here and click on Exit App. And then the way to get this started is you would actually click on the Start Session. And what this will do is it will go ahead and kick off the AI agent framework on the backend side. And for the most part, right now, it's just using LangChain. Eventually, I'm going to do some enhancements to the code where it's going to start using LangGraph. And once it starts using LangGraph, I can have an orchestrator that will kind of just orchestrate all the agents for them to, work autonomously, where you don't have to come in here and like click on buttons. But since this is just a beta version, right now there's buttons where you have to kind of go from like step to step to step. So basically, the first thing that will happen is you'll start a session, and then you will basically upload a text file, and that text file will basically just be simple instructions on how to navigate through the UI. So to kind of give an example, so I have some sample text files here that will go ahead and perform whatever kind of interaction in the browser. So as an example, here's something very simple, where I just basically say navigate to Google, search for the price of Bitcoin today, and then validate the price of Bitcoin, and then scroll to find a crypto broker that's highest rated and check out their offerings. So something very simple, right? Nothing too complex. I do have some other example files in here as well. So there's one for like Amazon shopping if you want to go and shop for something in Amazon. I do have another one for LinkedIn, and then another for Blaze Demo. So Blaze Demo is Blaze Meter. They have like a demo website, which is demoblaze.com. It's essentially just like a product store, like a demo product store. It's just like a mock store, basically. But you can go in and you can purchase stuff on there, and then you can fill out a form and fill out the different items on the actual form itself. So what you're probably going to notice is that there's actually steps in here that are basically tags for that will come in. That basically these tags are used by the browser use automation piece because when we take the actual raw human instructions such as this, they have to be basically passed to an LLM, which then parses that information, and then it will go ahead and format everything into navigation steps within the browser. And then when it does that, uh, when it's passed to browser use has its own agent that uses OpenAI's, it uses OpenAI's model in the back end to go ahead and do the browser navigation for you. So let me kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about here because it's probably easier if I showcase how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a simple navigation for this Google search because this is the human readable text, and so you can kind of get an idea of how this will work. So first off, you click on the Start Session button, and then when you click on the Start Session button, there is this agent viewer. Basically, it's just logging all the events for the agents and all the activity that the agents are doing on the backend side. So you can kind of see basically what's going on under the hood when everything is kind of running. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to come over here and you have to like browse for the task file. And so this task file can exist anywhere on your system. It really doesn't matter. So in this case, I'm going to select this Google search. So I just open it up, and then basically, since it's using Streamlit, Streamlit's kind of cool in the sense where when you're doing things, well, look at it like this. So Streamlit, it has widgets and for all these different components that you see here within the UI. And then also Streamlit can maintain a session state. So every time you come in and start a session, it will maintain the state of that session. So you can pass information to the session. So when we're going from step to step to step to step, all that information is like captured through Streamlit and it puts it into like a session state. So to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about is so within Streamlit, you can basically pass information that would be maintained within that session state, and basically it just puts everything into memory, right? So everything is held, and you can pass things back and forth to different agents within the framework. So it maintains that information. Everything is maintained in a specific state. Anyways, so the next thing you would do is you would take that raw file and then you would need to process it. So you can basically click on this process task file. When you do that, what will happen is it will take that task file, and you can see here it says fetching task file. It's starting to process it. It's loading it. It's basically takes that and it saves the same file that you upload and essentially puts it into a temporary location. After it saves it to a temporary location, then it will go ahead and load that, and then it will pass it to a particular agent node, and that agent node will then go ahead and parse that task file, and it will break apart the information within that task file into steps. And then after it parses it, it reformats that task file into formatted steps, and then it saves that file into another temporary location. And then it just basically returns saying that the task file is loaded and it's formatted it successfully. So what this looks like uh, from the file perspective, when it's actually saving everything, what you're going to see is first off, if you kind of go back to this agent viewer here, you can see that it took the original file and then it copies it to this temp raw folder, which is basically this temp raw folder here. And if I double click on it, you can basically see it's pretty much the same as the original file that I uploaded. So if I want to compare it, you can take a look at, this is the original file. Oops. There we go. This is the original file, and this is the one that's saved to the temp location. So it really doesn't do anything much except take the original file and put it into a location that the framework needs. So, and then after that, if we go back to the temp location, there is another folder within here called formatted. And then if I go into there, so it takes the original file again, and then it will put it into a temp location. After it puts it into a temp location, the agents will then go and it sends the information to the LLM in the back end. And so the LLM that I'm actually using is OpenAI. So I'm actually using the GPT 4.0 mini model. So there's actually a configuration. So I actually have two configuration files. I have a config YAML file here where you can specify the LLM model that you want to use. And then there's a JMeter config YAML that I'll talk about here in just a second. But anyway, so if I look at the task file that's now formatted, you can see that it took the raw file and then it broke it up into steps, and then it assigns a tag for each of those different steps that are going to again be used by browser use for the actual browser automation component. And then it just gives a tag for a very last thing, which is the end task, which basically says this is the end. There's nothing left to do after that. So it's kind of a stopping point. Anyways, so those are the files that are initially generated when it goes through everything. And then the next thing that happens is you would go ahead and click on this run browser task. So because now that we have a formatted file with the actual task steps, I can go ahead and run my run browser task and then kick off that flow. And so again, what it's going to do is it's going to use the browser use library underneath to go ahead and do the automation, the browser automation piece. And when it does this, it will actually open up Chromium. And so currently right now, the way I have everything structured, it's going to use Chromium to kick off everything. So you can see here, basically, it just opened up Chromium. And then if I go back to the command line over here, you can see that it's now also outputting information from browser use. So it's basically saying, okay, I parsed 4 steps. Now I'm going to the first step, which is navigate to google.com. And then browser use, it just kind of outputs a lot of different information, which are kind of helpful. Like if you're trying to debug something, you can kind of look at the information that's being output from browser use. Because I think one of the things that I found out is that even though I can pass like human readable text as my navigation steps in the browser, um, you have to be very specific if you're trying to accomplish something, specific, or if you want the AI agent or the LLM on the back end to appropriately navigate to the correct place on the page, or click on a specific button, or if you're trying to fill out a form, you have to basically be very explicit to kind of direct the LLM to like properly navigate in the browser to do basically what you want, right? Because if you're not passing the correct information, or if you're not giving enough detail on the steps that you want to accomplish in the browser navigation, the LLM is just going to start making assumptions. And so that's probably something you don't want to happen, because I kind of learned from the hard way. Like, if I don't give enough context, the LLM starts making assumptions, and it might click on something that you did not intend for it to click on. So you have to be very explicit in this case. But for the example that I have here, again, my example is just to kind of showcase how this works. I didn't want to like go into a big long browser navigation sequence, but anyways, so it just completed. It went through all the steps, and basically, you can see here that the last step here was finding a crypto broker. It was able to find it, and then so it completed that step. So if I come back over here to this agent viewer, I can kind of look at the information and look at what the agents were doing in this framework. So you can see here again that when we took the task file, it loaded the task file, and then it's running the browser automation, and then starting browser automation, invoking the browser automation tool, and then it's loading the task file, which the formatted task file, I should say, and then it recognized that there's steps in there. So it says, yeah, okay, I parsed 4 steps within that file. It then looks and extracts like the domain that you initially go to, which is just google.com. And then now it goes through and it's going through the different steps. So you can see here that it's executing step 1, which is navigating to google.com. So again, if I go back over here to my formatted task file, it's navigating to google.com. And then it just has a lot of other output for each of those steps that it's actually going through. So it's going through the first step, the second step, which is search for price of Bitcoin today. And then it just returns a lot of the DOM elements on the actual web page itself. This is just meant, again, more for like troubleshooting. So I'll probably basically turn off like this verbose logging here, because you probably don't want to see all this. And then it goes through the third step, which is validate the price of Bitcoin. Uh, it's able to go ahead and pull out the information. If you see here, it says the price of Bitcoin today is 109,000. Then it goes to the last step, which is scroll and find a crypto broker that is highest rated and check out their offerings. So it's able to find a crypto broker, and then it basically, as I was mentioning before, it will save the network capture file as a JSON file, and then so it just says browser automation is completed, the task is done, validating browser output. So that's the other thing, is that after it generates the JSON file, it will then also go ahead and there's another agent that will go ahead and then validate that the JSON file is properly structured. If the JSON is not properly structured, it will then just kind of kick back an error, letting you know that something was wrong. And then it just tells you that, again, just that the network JSON file is saved to another temp location, which is this temp logs folder. And then it just says browser task is completed successfully. So now if I come back over here, I can go ahead and go to this logs folder, and you can see here that here's the JSON file that was created. So if I open this up, again, this is very similar to a HAR file, where if you look in here, you can see there's like a bunch of HTTP requests in here. But along with those HTTP requests, there's the additional metadata that I was mentioning before for the steps that we execute. But again, if you go and look at the request, you can see there's the request header, the request method, the URL that you're going to, the headers that are passed to it. If there's post data, that will show up here. And then you can see that there's the response information as well. And then there's response headers. So eventually at some point, I'm going to create some additional agents to go in and probably create some correlations and based upon what's coming back in the response. But for now, it's just I'm starting, baby steps. I'm just working on the basics right now. So this is a big long JSON file. So again, the way it's structured is it's basically a dictionary, and if I collapse these, you can see basically that there's a different there's different pieces within here. So since this whole JSON is a dictionary, and then inside the dictionary there is the actual value. Okay, so for the dictionary there is a key, which is the actual step that we were discussing before, and then the value is a list of the HTTP requests that need to occur. Now, what you're probably going to notice is that some of these steps are probably empty. What that basically means is that when the agents are going through and they're actually navigating through the browser, when it comes to a particular step, if there's not like anything in particular, like any network traffic, or if they're not navigating or clicking on something, if there's no like underlying HTTP requests from the backend side, then there's no traffic to capture. So you're just going to get an empty list back. So in this case, all this, all the agent was doing is just validating the price as Bitcoin for today, right? So since it's just validating the price of Bitcoin, it doesn't have to go to like another, it doesn't have to do like another HTTP request. It's just looking at the existing DOM elements on the page, or elements on the actual web page that it navigated through, to basically determine, okay, do I have this information? Yes or no. Same thing for some of this other stuff as well. So there was no additional information. It didn't have to navigate anywhere. So it just basically returns like an empty list. Anyway, so now that this JSON file is created, I can go back over here to my framework over here, and then I can click on this generate JMX. And so when you click on that button, what will happen is it will pass it to a couple of other AI agents in the back end. And when it does that, it's doing a couple things. So one is it will go ahead and take the JSON output. So you can kind of see here. Let me kind of walk you through this. So here is the original JSON output that was created. And you can see here that the browser task completed successfully. And so the first thing that happens is that next agent will then go ahead and take that JSON, and then it will go ahead and kind of analyze the information, and then it will go ahead and generate the JMX file. So you can see here that it's using the JSON file. It's invoking this JMeter tool, and then it kind of looks at it and parses it. You can see that there's 4 entries, which would basically be the same thing as the 4 steps within the flow. And then it's able to generate the JMX file. After it generates the JMX file, it then passes that to another agent that will then validate the JMX. And essentially, when it's validating the JMX, it's just looking for key components within the JMX, like making sure that there's a test plan, making sure that there's a thread group. So just simple components. I think eventually I'll probably use this other JMX checker tool, but for the most part right now, it's just simple validation checks to make sure that the JMX file can